just a few minor details. We have gone back to American land law, and all the sheriffs in over 3,100 counties have been informed as such. That means when you read a court case titled Mack and Prinz, where the U.S. Supreme Court said the sheriffs could uphold the Constitution if they wanted to. Well, if has been changed to required. They don't have any choice. So with the liquidation of U.S. Inc.'s contract, and U.S. Inc. no longer exists, the corporate employees around us have been informed if they fail to uphold any of the so-called constitutions that they claim to have, we are in a position to do without their services. And there has been an international notice put out that there is no offer for substitution or succession to contract. It's either the original party holders or none at all. I live in or on Washington, and Washington is making a formalized list of things we are expecting our employees to engage in. Many of the alphabet soup agencies have been put on notice that it won't fare very well for them if they continue the path that some reports have indicated. This is why out in Georgia and the Carolinas and Florida, you're now seeing active sheriff engagement. Many of the false instructions have been countermanded. So we're going to get through this. It's just going to hurt for a while. Beyond that, I don't have much more than high hopes. A grand accounting has been ordered out of the entities that took our gold in the 1930s. I haven't seen any reports on performance-based offerings. So that's pretty much all I have to say tonight. I figured it would only be about 15 minutes worth of information at most.
Jim, I have a few questions for you.
Yep.
So Harris and Trump, are they under the municipal or are they under the territorial constitutions? Or are they under the United States? Where do they fit in this whole thing?
Okay, so the United States, little t, little h, little e, I'm being specific. Donald Trump was the last sitting president and CEO of that corporation. The United States of America, Inc. went Chapter 7, international liquidation. It no longer exists. And that was the municipal enterprise. So the municipal folks tried to offer up a new contract for the office of the White House, Inc. And that was what Biden was attempting to effect a successor to contract with. And that was firmly rejected. All the municipal employees are in the process of vacating America. So if you go down to your local county building and ask for their territorial as well as municipal corporate charters, and once they give them to you, you can tell them, oh, and by the way, I'm aware of the bankruptcy of the municipal as well as the territorial. Then watch the expression in everyone's face. See if they turn white.
So Trump and Harris, though, they're not running under the unincorporated United States, though, right?
Nope, they can't because they're functioning in dual citizen status.
Okay.
And that's the problem. Our founding fathers said that when you came out of Europe, you left your old prince, your old king behind.
So how about our military? What are they under?
Oh, our military came home.
Oh, they did. Okay. So, that's good news.
So from 1860 to just a week and a half ago, they actually functioned as internationally recognized commercial mercenaries.
So are all of our military on board, or are there some portions of it not with us?
There's a portion of both crowds in every country.
Because I
You
heard
have the white hats and you have the black hats.
Okay, yeah.
Everybody was infiltrated and compromised to some degree or another. And I don't care what language comes out of your mouth. We had thousands of years of infiltration. By some rather unsavory, unscrupulous curmudgeons.
So do we have the military to stop this, like the weather manipulation, taking down the 5G towers, and are they going to take them down everywhere, or?
The 5G towers have been ordered to be taken down. 4G is sufficient for all the telephone communications that we need. As Elon Musk has provided so many Starlinks, we're going to find supposedly a brand new backbone Most of you are aware of fiber optic, and it's about the size of your little pinky. And it has a huge volume of traffic capability. Well, about 15 years ago, I came into the community I am in today. It's a rather backwoods community, and the road that I lived on at the very end was under some form of construction. It had been torn up, big trees removed, widened, and I went down about 6 miles on it, and I came up to a TD-20 that had this 8-foot spool of this orange cable. Oh, I'm going to say it's at least 3 inches across. And I took a picture of it. And back in that day, we had a buddy who was a certified payphone repair tech. And he was amongst the last half dozen of them that still functioned in the country. And the phone companies would call him when they had a couple of hundred units that had to be repaired, and he'd go out on a route to do all these repairs. Well, I got a hold of this guy and asked him kind of a dumb question. What is this used for? And he goes, that's an impossibility. And so I sent him a picture, and he goes, someone's got some relatively grand plans for the future, because you could run the entire space program across what you just sent me. And he elaborated on the capabilities of the fiber optic that's about the size of your little finger. And so he said huge satellite installations could be run on a 3-inch cable. It's like they were laying the backbone for Internet 2, which would have had huge throughput speeds because it would not have been bottlenecked in any form or fashion. And since then, I stumbled into one installation that was a good 6 inches across, and that was down in one of the cities in the west side of Washington. There was about 15 feet of this 6-inch coming up out of the ground next to a telephone pole, and it was strapped to it just to keep it from flopping around. So I've seen pictures of a new type of replacement phone based on supposed quantum communication. And based on the quantum crystals, you literally push the communication in, and it pokes out simultaneously on the face of another quantum crystal wherever that other crystal destination is, instantaneously in and out. I can tell you the Federation of States has placed a bid for 12 main servers, and they're totally moving away from Microsoft and going to Linux. So if you know anybody that owns Microsoft stock, play the part of the little birdie and suggest that they sell the stock.
Who actually gives our military the orders now under the unincorporated? Is it Anna?
Okay. This is where history has not been properly taught. So I'll cover this. We go into the colonial war, we come out of it, and we're victorious. Treaty of peace gets signed. We then pitch a business deal to the king for some possible services. We make a stipulated list of 19 services. And it would be beneficial if people learned what those actual services are, because when we do away with the double dipping contractors, both the municipal and the territorial provide the same general services. And we have been double taxed to provide those services. So if 90% of what we look in the landscape and call government were to disappear tomorrow morning, the cost of running this place would drop significantly. This is where it's required of people participating in running their American government. So the 13 colonies became 13 state countries, and they each threw their international jurisdiction into one body. That one body is called the Confederation of States, or the Federation of States, pardon me. The Federation ran America from 1776 to 1781, and it sits squarely in the international jurisdiction. It's always been here, always been able to run things in the background. It's just the contractors didn't tell us what they had done to us back in the 1860s. And then they went hog wild on us. Like credit card thieves and identity theft, they hacked us as a country. Well, now that we can see the light of day, we've given notices to the principals, which were the King of England, the Lord Mayor of the City of London, and the Vatican. And we told them to correct their operations. So the Federation of States then gave rise to the Confederation, and the Confederation gave rise to the Federal Republic. Due to the fact that the Reconstruction Acts of the Civil War were not properly explained to us, the proper reconstruction has never been done. So the Federation of States is running the international jurisdiction right now. And it has recommended that we, the 50 states, consider the reconstruction of the body. That body gives rise to the American Congress. The American Congress sits in Philadelphia Hall. That is the actual seat of the American government properly. Our goal as the independent states of the Union. Pardon me, I got to take a call.
What happened? Is everybody still here?
Yes, we're waiting for John. He had to take a call.
Okay,
that's
I'm
what I
back.
thought he said. I'll be with. Boy, he's got more information than anybody I've ever heard of. He's got it all, doesn't he?
Yes, I agree.
Well, let me explain how I have this much information to share. First of all, my people have been in the legal field since 1220 AD. You can go on the internet and look up something called the Assize Courts of England. ASSIZES. My first ancestors popped up in 1220, and they were like the old circuit rider courts of the Wild West. Our founding fathers thought it was a good model in that it brought the courts to the people in their local villages. So we kind of modified that for our early court system. So at the Colonial War, my first American ancestor's father was very ensconced in the King's Admiralty mechanism. And when the war broke out, the king made him the Attorney General for the Isle of Bermuda. So I have law in my bloodstream. Secondly, I'm a recording secretary for the Federation of States. As such, I stand in the international jurisdiction helping people reclaim themselves as Americans. And then I sit on a couple of committees here in Washington. So I share what I can share so that we can dispel some myth and rumor. Because frankly speaking, there's so much disinformation, it's mind-boggling. We've got groups who are claiming to be us who are not. There's a group out there that's in possession of our Title IV war flag that they picked up at some kind of auction, and they're claiming to be in possession of the government. And we have other groups that are claiming to be Americans when they clearly straddle both jurisdictions, and our founding fathers never allowed for dual citizenship in the American government. This is part of why they passed the TONA Act. Attorneys are agents of the Crown of England, and our founding fathers made it such that they couldn't even hold the office of dog catcher. They didn't want any undue outside interference and influence. If you were to go to North Carolina in the archives, if I told you who my people were, you could find them in 2.3 nanoseconds. I just feel that our country has been abused, maligned. We have been used as the whipping boys of the world for the New World Order. And anybody else that's willing to buy mercenary service. All that has now changed because the U.S. military became the American military in the last week and a half. They were brought home to the land and soil and once again made honorable soldiery. When we get, as a country, through this chuck hole of history and we get ourselves cleaned up, the military, the National Guard, and other state groups will help with cleaning this gin joint up, because we got a tremendous amount of trash to take out. I yield.
Why do we even let Trump and Harris go for president? I mean, I guess is it just I know it's all a show right now. Is it just because the people aren't awake enough to give them all the information, or we just need it to be an act for a while?
It needed to be an act for a while. Think of everybody being puppies. We just got home. We don't know the house rules. Someone says no, and you've done something kind of nasty, and you get your nose rubbed in the carpet. You get spanked, and then you get thrown outside. This is a similar thing that everyone's experiencing. In part, from my own perspective, we had to go through this hurt in order to actually see it. Not just get told, this over here is corrupt, this was infiltrated. We actually had to see it with our own eyes, experience the pain before we would acknowledge the precipice. So what is that precipice? The precipice of our own destruction as a country. When people do not think of themselves as victims of Stockholm Syndrome, we've cozied up to those whom we perceive to be in positions of authority. They've given commands that are off the hook, off the wall, ludicrous as hell, but still people obeyed. Why? It's because they've thrown their own internal value systems. Their independent critical thinking has been subverted by programming. Yet they do not think of themselves as having been programmed and their own independent thinking subverted. But when you push someone hard enough, brutal enough, and they suddenly go, hey, this doesn't make sense. Why am I enduring this? That's why we've been put through this. Next question.
This is Arjax. I have a question. You said that our military is back on land. Is that all branches of the military?
Yep. So up the Constitution thread, there is an ex parte Milligan notice posted somewhere. From page 4 on are all the services that were served notice. I would ask people to go and actually read that list. So instead of serving it to the commander-in-chief of the U.S. military, Trump got served a carrot on a long stick. The commander-in-chief of the American Armed Forces. And it finally came to pass in the last week and a half. So with the cease existence of a U.S. Inc., we're now at a point where you're going to physically see the roll out of the devolution protocols. All 3,100 plus county sheriffs were given notice of a change of government and a change of jurisdiction of law. If you look up a court case called Mack and Prinz, Sheriff Mack took the case before the U.S. Supreme Court. The court said, you county sheriffs can uphold the Constitution if you want. If is a discretionary, whimsical word. If. What do you mean by if? Well, that went from if to required. As in a ministerial obligation to perform. And they were granted actual state immunity as the highest enforcement at the county level within the physical borders of their respective county. Until that happened, they were merely corporate Pinkertons rattling doorknobs, well-dressed, trying to enforce corporate codes, statutes, and regulations on folks. There's a retired sheriff who was challenged and given some information. And he went on a deep dumpster dive. And he came up with so much information that the codes, statutes, and regulations are not constitutional. And as such, he just told his fellow law enforcement folks that they have not been properly taught. Well, they don't know what they don't know because the training academies come out from underneath the state corporation. And when they improperly train, then the people who are officers improperly enforce. But what the officers don't realize, that they don't have state immunity. They have been commercially hung out to dry, bearing full commercial liability in and of themselves of their actions. They don't know what they don't know. And unfortunately, I can't think of a single county across America that doesn't have two types of personalities in the county sheriff's department. Those who think that they're actually upholding something honorable. And then you have those that come into their offices with a bully's mentality. And they're feeding their egos. Next question.
I don't know why, but this is Arjax, but it seems to me people have been saying for a long time that if anybody can uphold the Constitution, it would be the sheriff, because we the people elected him to be the sheriff of our counties, and he is the one person that can uphold the Constitution. Is that? But that's under the corporate, isn't it?
So let me digress what you just said. We the people elected. No, we the people did not elect the corporate county sheriff.
Right, because we're British citizens.
Members of that corporate hierarchy with a British territorial title hanging over you as citizen. Because from their side of the perspective, in order to vote inside that corporate structure, you have to be a Commonwealth citizen. Yet people do not know that in order to elect Congress, only the Electoral College elects the president. The common everyday street straw poll known as the vote doesn't do diddly squat.
Right.
We the people have been misinterpreted. So we the people is a category of folk. And it's on the constitutional side of the construction for the United States of America, unincorporated. So the states send forth their deputies to Philadelphia Hall. The American congressional folks bring forth folks for the Confederation of States. We the people in the Declaration of Independence is the American state citizen. They have a singular allegiance to their respective state. They stand in international jurisdiction. They're able to vote on treaties and national laws. They're also able to turn around 180 degrees and vote on anything inside the state. We were all born as nationals on the state that we were born on. And that's how we get our God-given standing as an American. There is a push on by the contractors to misinform people of what a citizen is. As a national, you don't owe any allegiance to your respective state. But a state citizen picks up the mantle of responsibility. With that responsibility comes rights, and with those rights come duties. And when you're a state citizen, you help with the international affairs of your respective state. I happen to be one of those American state citizens. My firstborn American ancestor fought in the Colonial War, and I possess his Colonial War pension number. So our hereditary head of state as an unincorporated country granted equal standing recognition of all the Colonial War veterans and their progeny forever. So this is why it made America the land of the free and home of the brave. And some of you have heard the old saying, we are kings in our own right. Even though our kingdom might only be 5 square feet, and my kingdom brushes up against your kingdom, and where I have joint sovereignty in my kingdom, my sovereignty ends at the edge of yours. As long as I don't trespass equally across you. A lot of people are going to be waking up to the fact that American common law now rules across the country. And American common law is not civil law. And most people are going to have a hard time when they come across the fact that they've lived their entire life as a subject citizen and treated as a slave. Because it flies in contradiction to the Emancipation Proclamation, or what at least they were taught of it. When people look at that monument sitting in DC with Lincoln sitting in the chair, get a really good picture and look underneath Lincoln's hands, you're going to see the colonnades of Roman fascia. This is the symbol that the emperors used to carry to show their status and authority. What you're actually seeing is a worship temple to the first installed American Roman Caesar. That's really what civil law is. Foreign, imported, Roman Empire Code. And everything that used to abuse us with it is called the municipal whatever. Municipal state, the municipal county, the municipal federal. And because we were not taught how to recognize it, it was that all caps entity, the all caps county, the all caps state, the all caps federal. And our two contractors really went off the beaten path and played ping pong with the American people in the court system in 1937. FDR said, from this point on, you'll run admiralty, not American law. And there is American admiralty law, an American common law. But the British admiralty law is the law of the sea. They just imported it onto the soil. And thankfully, it's going bye-bye. Next question.
Well, I have another question. This is Arjax again. When do you think that everyone is going to be told all of this information? Because we became I mean, they became bankrupt on October 1st, I think you said. And I haven't heard but one YouTuber out there even talking about anything. And he was only mentioning the fact about the ports, and he gave some, he went into the history of how the ports were being ruled, and that he felt that what had happened during the strike was the same as what you said, that they are now under the American and not the corporation.
Mm-hmm. Well,
so I'm just wondering, when do you think everybody's going to find this out? I mean, can Trump do this? Can Trump tell us what's going on?
Oh, I think there's going to be a major declassification here within the next 6 weeks.
Oh gosh, that'd be great.
Yeah. And here in Washington, where I live, we're rebuilding all of our court manuals, our jury manuals for the training of people for the common law. And our goal is to hold elections in January. We're going back to the old tradition. And because in 1976, American history was removed from the school systems, people don't know their history. And this is a sad affair, but this is why we're experiencing this nose rub. In our own living room. That way, each of us passes down our experience, our unique perspective, so that going forward, we don't allow what we came through to ever happen again to us. And I do believe we're going to come into some additional information that is going to take the planet a couple of 100 years of absorption of information in the span of maybe 10 days. So when we come out of this time frame, you're going to see a lot of traumatized people. And those who have an idea of what's going on, you all are going to be the ones that help stabilize society. Because the American government starts at the kitchen table moves to the neighborhood, moves out into the county, up to the state, and then up to the what we call the federal level. So think of it as a pyramid and turn the structure upside down. The kitchen table is at the top of the list, and the federal corporate contractors are at the very pinpoint at the bottom of the food chain, because they are all employees and they work for us as Americans. So turning the power structure on its head. Next question.
Question about protecting our assets. Should we be getting common law trusts? I know you mentioned something about we shouldn't have LLCs because that's really under the corporate structure, right? So should we be putting things in a common law trust? Or do you even believe in the trusts? Or what's your opinion?
Personally, I hold a 508 ministerial trust that sits right next to the Amish, the Quakers, and the Mennonites. Fully First Amendment, freedom of religion. But it is a situation where I help people with it. The living men and women do not need a trust. When you walk back into the land jurisdiction, you can function from an assumed business certificate, totally unincorporated. But there's a protocol for taking your corporate business and changing jurisdictional law under which it operates. Unbeknownst to most folks, there sits a 15 trillion, and I repeat, trillion-dollar bond in the Treasury for us to function under unrestricted international trade. But you have to be recognized as one of the living people to come under that bond. Now, I crafted a document for a gentleman utilizing that bond in a court here in Stevens County. And let me tell you that when the assistant deputy prosecutor was scanning through the documents, this suddenly became the most cute dog and pony response imaginable. Now picture this guy going through the documents, just flipping them, scanning, looking at the face pages, and suddenly he flips over this thing and he goes, flips it, his hand upside down and back up, and he yells, "Bond!" And the judge suddenly comes upright. "Bond? Well, we'll let the value of the land be the value of the court case. Appeal granted." In the case of 25 seconds, the entire demeanor of the court shifted. That particular assistant deputy prosecutor is no longer in this county because the shift of recognition of authority, I'm going to call it, subtly changed. And this particular gentleman is the inheritor of a land patent. And as an American, a land patent is the highest form in recognition of possession of land by right, in a freehold, in a lodium recognized under American law. Because they've been treating everyone as British subjects, they're subject to a leasehold. And their real estate, which is a royal estate, is in a king's trust. So until people come out from underneath that, they are deemed to be incompetent. And when anybody hires an attorney, they represent you as the dead. The dead fictional infant decedent estate. This is why the American people do not hire lackeys from the king. Because the entire bar association here is under letters of marque and reprisal, stealing everything they can for the king. But when we came under internationally recognized land law, the attorneys have been defanged. Though they huff and they puff, what they're trying to do is enforce contracts. And if you do not recognize something that you've done in the past as being a contractual item, you won't recognize what they're trying to enforce. So if you look upstream in the Constitution, there'll be a document, Did You Know? I believe that's what it's titled. And it's a list of items that almost all of us have ever done. From a driver's license to a marriage license. So if you're a parent, you are paying rent because you have a joint tenancy in a business enterprise called marriage. And the state that issued the license has 51% interest in the business enterprise, where the product being produced out of the enterprise is something called children. And children are not sons and daughters. They are an industrial product. And if you change the C to a K, and you change the enunciation to children, go look that up in Black's dictionary or Weiss's Trust Library dictionary. So the PDF is called Did You Know PDF. And it was posted on September 27th. And just above it, there is a structure document PDF. Pull those down and go read them and share them. Have discussions with your friends and your family. There is a legal marriage and there's a lawful marriage. They sit in different jurisdictions with certain blessings and certain disabilities. The legal marriage has disabilities. He who creates a thing controls a thing, and since the state of whatever created the license, they control the relationship. This is why family court exists. Any other questions? I'm surprised we made it an hour tonight.
I had to turn myself back on. I do have another question, and it has to do with our new financial system. Over on once we change status, it seems like the corporate side is going to digital banking and decentralized banking, meaning that each individual person can be their own bank with their own digital wallet. And I'm wondering if any of that is going to transfer over to the new system.
Okay, so I got to back up in history. Since 1860, all of our ancestors had labor bonds taken out on them. They also had life insurance taken out on them. Social Security is a generational skip trust. Your birth certificate was sold on Wall Street starting in 1921 in mass. So if you hit 65 for full retirement, the corporate realm has had 6 refinance packages on your SS number because it's funded with a 10-year bond. Yet with that 10-year bond, you get breadcrumbs. The Federation of States went after those Social Security bonds. They also went after the labor bonds. They're also going after all the state trusts. We as Americans are owed everything that's inside the state trusts. We co-own the bridges, the roads, the national parks. So unless a state government pre-1860 specifically granted land to the federal enterprise, they're limited to forts, arsenals, post offices, post roads. So if you look at how much land, I'm just going to call it the de facto structure holds in your respective states, you're going to find a lot of overreach. There's going to be a lot of clawback. With the change of land law, the sheriffs have been put into peacekeeping mode. You're also going to learn about the Peacekeeping Task Force, as well as the Continental Marshal Service. The Continental Marshal Service has international cross-state border jurisdiction. Peacekeeping Task Force is a liaison service, not only at the county level, but across state lines. Now, to the banking side of things, the American State and Nations Trade Bank was reestablished. getting back into that $15 trillion bond, we have an absolute right to internationally unrestricted trade under Title 15. We Americans are the actual employers of everybody. We dictate to our employees what we want them to do. So they're obligated to jump how high and how often. When it comes to banking, if you hold a driver's license in your respective state, you're going to find out your driver's license holds a bond. Here in Washington, I found out that it was a $5,000 bond on each renewal cycle. You can go to treasurydirect.gov and search for the savings bond calculator. Treat your driver's license number as if it is a serial number for a savings bond. Depending upon how often you do your renewal cycle in your state, whether it's 4 or 6 years, your bond will vary in value. But when you enter your driver's license number in, the calculator will come up with ones, tens, hundreds, and thousands. And you have to pull the value across, tally them to see how much the bonded value is on your driver's license. You're going to have 2 to 3 numbers on your birth certificate. You'll have black numbers, you'll have red numbers. The black is the number of the estate. The red number is of the living. And why is it red? Is because you have blood coursing through your veins. But the birth certificate is not you. It was created under foreign law by foreigners, and he who creates a thing controls the thing. So your relationship to the birth certificate has been that of a donor. The claim has been made to cancel the donation on behalf of many Americans. So we are owed back an immense amount of all kinds of stuff. Across the country, there's a blue dot banking system being established. Banking is loosely being used because it's the only term the people in general know of using. But in reality, what's coming is a prosperity system. Our contractors hacked into our credit line as a country. The Internal Revenue Service and the IRS are 2 separate entities sitting in 2 separate contracting jurisdictions. And they were supposed to do the bookkeeping, balancing on a daily basis, but they didn't do it for 160 years. This is why the national debt got sky high. We're now functioning from the other side of the ledger as of a week ago. We as Americans are owed an incredible amount of prepaid credit because your American birthright, your father's and mother's birthright, your grandparents' birthright, and your great-grandparents' birthright were mothballed into a state trust deemed a collaterable asset. And then the credit from it was distributed across the globe by people who hacked us. So as an American, you're owed an incredible amount of everything. but as a U.S. citizen, you're an indentured servant of the King of England, and you're a pissant peon pauper living on American soil. So like I tell people, come home. Correct your status. Once again, be recognized as an American and learn to walk in your own authority. April 15th, the American Federation gold-based dollar was proclaimed to the world as the new issued American gold-based currency. Not the rainbow that's been trying to be pawned off. 55,000 tons of gold were supposedly sent to the mint to strike coin. That's right, gold coin in your hand is supposed to be coming. You're going to learn about the Global Family Group. The Federation of States issued a banking charter to it, and it cut corners in the rebuilding of the American banking protocols. It saved us over a decade of rebuilding everything that was scuttled in the last century and a half. Think of getting prepaid credit that you do not have to pay back. Like a prepaid credit card, but the source is what is owed to you. Because your identity was hacked, your birthright was hacked. At least 5 generations back. We're actually entering into the 7th generation now. It's a good time to be able to dream dreams. And to reimagine what your life might look like if you could retake the path of your life to pursue your passions. I originally wanted to be an oceanographer. I had dreams of being the next Jacques Cousteau. But I also had very strong family ties of family. And when I learned that Jacques also left his family, his sons, his wife on shore for up to 9 months at a time, I jumped study majors and started down the engineering path. I'm most certainly not the only one in the landscape that has done this. And because I went down the engineering pathway, I ended up picking up a 35-year career with a major jet airplane manufacturer. Sure, it paid the bills, but it's not where my passion was. What would your life look like if you could chase your passion? If you did that, you would actually never work a day in the rest of your life because you're chasing your passion. And you're chasing it with the fullness of your spirit. not with the drudgery of a 9 to 5, going to a job, which is just over broke. Oh, and as a side note, when you come back to the land and soil, you can tell the instant robbery service you choose no longer to donate your labor. So the next time you get your paycheck, look at the federal withholding. What if you didn't have to do that anymore? What would it do to your lifestyle? $1, $2, $3, $500 per paycheck. Oh my God, coming back into your pocket. What would it do to your lifestyle and your dreams? Next question.
Are the UN biospheres gone from our national parks?
Oh, the Federation of States never joined the UN for a reason. They're the follow-on from the League of Nations. Since the League of Nations failed, the UN failed as well. And the corporation couldn't sell what was not rightfully theirs. When you look back at Theodore Roosevelt, walk softly with a big stick. People became aware of the stick. And why is that? Because of the bully pulpit. So who's the bully? And by what authority? The two-party system is not American and never has been. Next question.
This is Arjax again. I have another question. I'm wondering, is there a treasurer of the government for the Federation of States? And if so, has that person talked to the treasurer of the corporation? And does the treasurer of the corporation know that the corporation does not exist anymore? I'm just wondering how all this is going to work. I'm sorry.
We have an American fiduciary. The American fiduciary has been at battle with the corporate world structure for decades. And over 203 countries have given over their authority to the fiduciary to represent them in reconciling international banking issues so that we all can go back to a gold recognized standard. Our international claims to gold predate the Chinese by over 100 years. Again, history of the world has not been properly taught. And when you find out what the Rothschilds did to take over the Bank of England during the time of Napoleon. So The Rothschild had spies everywhere. And they even had them overlooking the battlefield of Napoleon. So when the battle turned, the rider went out, heading for London. And the writer was proclaiming, "Oh my God, we lost our butt. We're gonna be invaded." And everybody in the stock exchange in London were dumping their whatevers for pennies on the dollar. And the Rothschilds were loaded to the gills with money. And they bought everything possible. And then the real writer came into town. "We were victorious. We won." And suddenly the Rothschild enterprise disappeared off the floor of the exchange. And everyone's going, "What? How can this be? What just happened? Oh my God, what did we just do?" Well, when the smoke cleared, the Rothschilds had absolute control of the London Exchange and the Bank of England. Skullduggery at its finest. Bait and switch. It worked once, it worked twice, it worked 100 years ago. Bait and switch. So along with bait and switch goes divide and conquer. Divide and conquer from pillar to post. If they can create division, they can conquer. Even if it's in little pieces. Once that chink in the armor exists, it can be exploited. So yes, our fiduciary is in contact with the World Bank, the International Bank of Settlements, and a host of other entities. And a grand international accounting has been demanded. Because in the day of FDR, 20,000 tons of gold was confiscated from our ancestors. 6,000 tons went to the Federal Reserve. So there used to be 64 international Federal Reserve banks. It has all rolled back up into the lap of the New York Fed, and it was the only one we were dealing with for quite some time. The Federal Reserve went bankrupt in 2009. They were invited back to the negotiation table for a 50-year lease, and they thumbed their nose at the Federation of States. So the Federation of States seized. Along the way, we've done historical research. We found out our contractors who negotiated the original Treaty of Peace of 1783 did it fraudulently. And how so? There actually hasn't been a legitimate king or queen sitting on the English throne since 1707. In 1707, Queen Anne stepped off the royal throne and took up the seat of the estates. The seat of the estates is the land of the dead, controlling birth certificates. And this was by way of the Act of 1666 when London went up in flames. Oh, what a wicked web we weave when first we choose to deceive. Well, that deception has now been pierced. We, the American people, have foreclosed on the King of Scotland, the Emperor of Great Britain, and all of the crown corporate charters in between. This is in part why Trump did the walk in front of the Queen. Those who were supposed to be our allies stabbed us in the back, tried to cut our throat, and take over the corporation for their own use. This is why the executive orders exist, for foreign interference. We're taking it all back, folks. Next question.
This is Arjax again. I think you said that we're going to have gold coins, and that's going to be our currency. So we're going to be walking around with gold in our pockets.
That was the intention. So in 1895, the U.S. Navy, under the control of the Brits, started taking our American gold offshore and cashiering them in the Philippine caves. What they were setting up was a future time for a bankruptcy of the Scottish Interloper Corporation that Abraham Lincoln and his cronies brought in from Edinburgh, Scotland, called the United States of America, Inc. Well, they got to a point in 1907, they initiated a bankruptcy. And supposedly, oh my God, the Americans don't have enough gold to pay the debt. Well, this is where the international bankers colluded, wink, wink. And the Brits, representing us, stabbed us in the back. This gave rise to the Federal Reserve Act of 1913. And here we are today with the Federal Reserve note having been devalued by fraud, counterfeit, inflation, which is actually a hidden form of taxation, to the point when the Federation started doing an international accounting, it got so bad, it was 234 FRNs to 1 cent.
What were FRNs?
Federal Reserve note, that greenback thingy in your wall.
Oh, that thing. Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. Well, it's a debt instrument. And when you look back at the Popeye and Wimpy cartoons, as an IOU, I'll gladly pay you tomorrow for a hamburger today. Because the Federal Reserve note has no redemption schedule on it. It's a revolving door open debt instrument. Now, with the central bank digital dollar, whoever has their thumb on the button can electronically freeze you out of everything, versus a all cash based economy where you have privacy, which is a novel concept. You have freedom of movement to transact and trade with whoever you want. But we've lost sight of free enterprise. And frankly, the economics that I hear from most colleges isn't worth the Charmin to write the degree on. Next question.
So let me ask you this. We're going to be exchanging when there is a reset soon. So will all of our foreign currency be exchanged into gold coins?
That is something at this point in time that I'm not able to answer. There's so much from special redemption centers on military bases and other things. Why wouldn't you just take your foreign currency into a land bank and get the recognized international equivalent extracted right across the board?
Well, where will it go?
How about into an account in the land bank?
Okay.
But in
So
order to
everybody,
qualify,
there aren't that many land banks though right now, are there?
well, I heard that there are 50 prosperity institutions now set up or being set up across the states, one in each state. And here in Washington, we've talked about setting up our own credit union, and we're having discussions of what it looks like as a prosperity institution. Our American banking model is going to function as a push model. Whatever the Federation of States is able to recoup, and I'm just going to say they're going to shove $10 trillion across 50 states. Every state gets an equal amount. Or they say, on this date, we have, let's say, 35 million recognized papered up Americans sharing that amount. And so by demographic, each state gets the according push of funds to be distributed to each of the people in their respective accounts. So during the time of FDR, the corporate Congress put in certain legalizing parameters for the American people to take advantage of during their bankruptcy and substitution of our silver dollar for their FRN. There has been on the books for over 90 years House Joint Resolution 192, Public Law 7310, and it's codified in Title 50 as the remedy and relief for the American people. So there was launched something called Sign in America in each of the states to help people who had done their paperwork to take advantage of this program that was set up under FDR. Well, the Treasury folks feigned not only ignorance, but they didn't believe the system actually existed. And so they chose not to actually honor the laws that were on the books. And the reason I know about this is I'm the Sign in America coordinator for Washington. And when I tell you I've processed something on the order of $30 million of claims to the Treasury, I did a whole bunch of arm twisting with the IRS. And in their ignoring of the claim process, we were told there was once something called the federal window in each of the states. But because they had kidnapped so many of us on record, they slowly started closing down the federal window. And it got to a point where there were only 3 of these windows open left across America for the submission of bills. Out here in the Western 12, it was Ogden, Utah. So I was appointed the authorized representative to process these bills. Now, the program ended in the fall of 22, and then in March, April, another round of it was opened up as a arm twisting operation, and everything had to be submitted by April 6th. And it was the forcing of recognition. If you folks in the Treasury refuse to acknowledge this, then your entire operation is absolutely criminal. And it's caused movement. The international bankers and the folks at the Treasury are starting to give way. I personally feel that at the end of this year, at the end of 2024, we're going to get a whole bunch of presents. And those presents will involve the things that we're owed, like the real title to your car, boat, RV, being able to hold your house in an allodium title under land patent, not subject to property taxes. And then historic payments from that last 160 years of criminal enterprise. So those of us that possess whatever currency and have the opportunity to go into our land bank and put it across as an internationally submitted redemption, why would we go to a secretive military base to a power broker who's only willing to offer us 80, not even 80%, give us 20% face value while they keep 80%? I'm not willing to do that.
So then where will you be going if you're not going to one of the redemption centers that you're talking about? Will you be going to one of the trade banks?
Yep. Trade banks trade in physical assets, gold, silver, gemstones, whatever's physical and of value. So I would save myself, instead of getting only 20% of face value. I have huge plans for humanitarian rebuilding.
Well, could you give me an example of what you're talking about with the 80 and the 20?
Well,
is that possible?
let's say you have 100 trillion Zim. We've heard values of like 30 million versus face value.
We've also heard that Zim is not going to do anything, that we're not going to be able to redeem it for anything, or it's just not going to work.
Well, this is
a lot
why
of people have said that.
Yeah, so whatever happens, why would I give a middleman some percentage? I've heard that the Iraqi dinar is going to walk out the door at like 327, 357, isn't it?
We've heard some gurus say it's going to be 16 to 18.
Yeah. So
yeah.
16 to 18 against what?
I know.
So if it's gold to gold, gold is gold.
Yes.
So I've heard everyone may also walk out the door 1-to-1. So 1 yen may equal 1 ruble, may equal 1 peso.
May equal $1.
Yeah, but it's an American dollar, not a US dollar.
Right. Gotcha.
So we've all heard all kinds of rumors.
So do you have any values that you see that might be realistic then?
Well, I can tell you on April 5th, the American Federated Dollar was proclaimed into the international community. It's based on 1/10 of an ounce of gold. And its value will fluctuate just like anything. If gold goes to 5,000 USD, what is 1/10 worth?
500?
Uh-huh. There will be a time, I do believe, when there's going to be a call on Federal Reserve notes for trade out in the economy. People
and will we
be
trading to the new Federation dollar?
Well, that is where there was a notice given from the Federation that the rainbow dollar is to be redeemed as prepaid credit on its issuance for our side of the ledger. The IRS and the Internal Revenue Service were supposed to do day-to-day accounting, and at the end of the day, it would be zero sum. Well, that never transactioned. This is why the national debt supposedly got so high. But if the daily accounting actually happened, there would be no such thing as national debt. And since they owe us so much because they traded out the FRN 1-to-1 to 1 US silver dollar, So they traded out an actual asset based on silver for a nondescript IOU debt instrument. Times a century of ongoing printing. There's not enough physical silver in the world to repay what is owed to us. This is why Basel III is such a boogie-boo for the banks, because it's a liquidity threshold. Now, the American States and Nations Trade Bank is fully Article 4 or Basel IV compliant. It's the only bank Basel IV compliant.
Well, are they dealing with the new gold backed dollar?
That's what the Federation dollar is. Gold back, 1/10 of an ounce.
Okay, and so that, do you have any of that?
No, I have not. And I have volunteered to go run the mint or a
Oh,
mint.
okay. That's one way to get it going.
Well, with a 35 plus year background as a machinist, I can set up all kinds of equipment.
Yep. So, in other words, we're not ready to do any kind of exchanges yet, then, are we?
I'm so much in the dark like everybody else at this point.
Yeah. But it sounds like there's not the right kind of money to exchange into yet.
Well, the Federation gave orders for the minting of stuff and to scrutinize all the Kennedy notes. JFK issued an executive order for the reestablishment of silver certificates.
Yeah.
And that's part of what got him shot. And those have been sitting in the warehouses in full sheets. Those full sheets were ordered to be scrutinized and examined for condition, to be cut and then be reissued.
Mm.
That's all I can tell you.
Okay. Wow, that's amazing.
So how I see this unfolding is if the notice were published, let's say they open up that window for 45 days, we would have whatever time specified to empty our pillowcases, empty our mattresses, get it out of the safe, out of our wallets, and they would exchange it 1-to-1 for whatever's being reissued. After that, you can go plaster it on the wall. And why would
It'll
that
be
happen?
absolutely worthless. Yeah.
Because of the drug dealers, the international arms trade, they have these warehouses stacked with pallets of whatever they've obtained. They couldn't get it out of the warehouse and redeemed fast enough.
The Red Cross has those kind of crates full of it too.
Oh, you saw that, huh?
Yeah.
There are a lot of internationally recognized institutions that have masqueraded on both sides of the human trafficking and money laundering operation.
Yep.
It's going to come out.
I can't wait. I just can't wait. I'll be honest with you. There's so many people that tell me, "You're just full of hot. You just don't know what you're talking about."
I'm waiting for Pizzagate.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Get that out there,
Oh,
because I told my family all about Pizzagate, and they thought I was crazy. There's no way, they said.
well, so are you a hazelnut, a cashew, an almond, a walnut? Because you sound like you're nuts.
Yep, that's what I am. I'm
That's what
nuts.
they all think.
Yep.
Uh-huh. So I'm right there with you. I became the black sheep castaway. And I see a time when so many people around us going, you tried telling us about this thing, and we didn't listen to you back then. How did you know?
Discernment, I think, is more than anything, because
Right?
the information has been out there for everyone, and if they just reject it right off the bat, they aren't going to know. And that's
Well,
what most people do.
it sounds so ludicrous,
Yeah.
far-fetched. Dear old Uncle Sam wouldn't do that to us.
Yeah. They trust our government. They absolutely trust our government.
Mm.
And after working with so much of the government, I just had more discernment than they did, in terms of whether I thought it was true, or if I thought I just rejected it. They just rejected it. And I could see that there could be truth in what I was hearing. So I, did more investigation, I guess.
Yeah. Well, once I got a hold of my individual master file from the IRS, once you see it, you cannot unsee the truth. Black, white, warts, and everything else, the truth is still the truth. It can be uglier than garbage, but it's still the truth. It can also be inconvenient to one's value construct. So when I was sitting in law archive, rubbing shoulders with attorneys and whatnot, and the day happened that the light bulb went on, and I realized half of everything I know is wrong, and the other half is built on a lie. Oh my God, what is real? Well, I know how to tie my shoes. I can pull the zipper up on my jeans. I can flush the toilet and put the lid down. And I know which end of the fork to use to feed my face. But after that, everything was challenged. Everything. And with the jaundiced eye, I got very cynical very fast. I kept asking the question, how did this come to be? By what authority did this get made or happen or come into existence? And after a certain point, I just got very determined that I would rather be part of the solution, standing on my own 2 feet, than crawling on my knees for the rest of my existence. That's part of what motivates me.
Well, I remember telling my sister about Lincoln and everything that Lincoln did, being part of the bar and being elected president and writing all these executive orders to correct everything that he was doing that was illegal against the Constitution. And then I told her about Jekyll Island and the Federal Reserve. And I told her also that we are all slaves now. And she said, well, maybe you are, but I'm not. So that's, it's like she didn't hear anything I said.
Well, when they gave us the birth certificate, they made us stockholders in this corporate wherewithal. But because of how the education system works, we're not taught that to think that.
Mm-mm.
And I spell school SKOOL.
That's how it sounds.
Yep. Because none of us are truly educated. We were spoon-fed whatever we were taught from kindergarten to 12th grade. And then those of us that went on to college got whatever was demanded inside that degree. Whether it's an associate's, a bachelor's, a master's. A circle has 360 degrees in it. So how many degrees of that circle to come full circle do we really possess?
Not enough.
And that illustrious doctor's degree, that PhD, well, if you phonetically utter it, PH, just like elephant, and then put a D on it, what does that sound like? Yeah. And so when you take the C off of child and put it with a K and say children, yeah, it suddenly warps your comprehension and your understanding.
What does Black's law say that is? What is the definition of that in Black's law?
Oh, hang on here for a second. Oh. In general, the term child refers to a minor, okay? Someone who is below the age of majority, which is usually 18 in most states, and that is in the federal jurisdiction. In the land jurisdiction, that would be called the age of majority, and it's 21. A child has fewer rights and responsibilities than someone who's reached the age of majority. So the other aspect of it, in deeds, the word children signifies the immediate descendants of a person. In 1858, second section of Congress, they redefined the word person from the everyday understanding of man or woman to that of a business entity. They also redefined individual. So in Title 26 in the tax code, if you look at the word individual utilized, you have to actually go to this definition section. So under the Code of Federal Regulations 363, there is a definition for child and adult, but it's your relationship to an entity. Those who do not have proper comprehension do not possess the wherewithal to avail themselves to all of their rights. And therefore, they have to hire an attorney to represent their rights because they're incompetent before the law. So under the birth certificate, there is a minor infant decedent estate created. When one becomes competent to handle their affairs, they become the adult. And there is a procedure established to take control of the minor estate as the adult. And there used to be a procedure for this for something called the black card. If you manage to navigate the language, take control of the procedure, you would be issued a black card. And then the Treasury folks would really put their thumb on you not to let the cat out of the bag. Well, the Federation wants to rip that illegal weed out of the ground and put it into the fire so it never takes root again. So under 15 U.S. Section 6501, the term child means an individual under the age of 13. So in each of these various sections of the law, they have their own definitions of how to apply the relationships. And if we're not taught how to properly interpret and we overtrust, we leave it into the hands of others to exploit us. I'm firmly against that exploitation. That's why I freely disclose whatever I can. I'm not a patriot, as in P-A-Y, triot. I firmly believe that everyone should know this stuff. And when it becomes common coffee clutch discussion, I will know I have done my job.
As many times as I've heard all of this, I still get it wrong. I still ask questions we're using the wrong words.
Well,
it's what I've been taught, it's hard to change.
Well, it is hard to change, but you have to get the basics. I started at 80,000 foot elevated viewpoint. The entire system works on faulty language and admissions and confessions. So the nature of the words we were taught to use is the problem. And no one gave us a clue. Here we are, we're playing checkers, and the attorneys in the courts on the other side are playing Parcheesi. And we wonder why everything looks so messed up. About the time we get the hang of it, they change rules. And I like to say they like to move the cheese very frequently. And why are they dealing with cheese? Because they're a bunch of rats. And from my perspective, there's no such thing as a dumb question. There's only the question you forgot to ask. And like Homer Simpson used to say, oof! When he realized he should have done something or asked something. Anything else?
Well, is there anyone else that has any questions? I've just been full of them tonight, but does anybody else have any questions? Oh, somebody has their hand up. A couple of people have their hands up. Let me give them a right to speak. Allow. Okay. I just gave J29 and Maha Q both have the right to speak now, so you can unmute yourselves and go ahead. One of you go ahead and ask your question.
Let's start with Mahak. And unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yeah, let me just check and make sure I got you.
Okay, I have a question.
Yep.
Okay. Like I was hearing you guys talk about the Zim for an example. Well, does some
Speak
of
up a
that
little bit. I'm having a hard time hearing you.
I said I was hearing you guys talk about the Zim for an example, and I was wondering, would that be the case also with possibly like things like the Venezuelan and other things that people were believed to bring more to the table?
Mahak, I'm having a hard time hearing you. Would you please check your
I was
output
asking
sound
about,
system?
okay, I was asking about value of things like the Venezuelan or something else around the nature that was kind of like the Zim being still on the playing table as far as being able to take to the bank. Will people still be able to do that?
Did you hear that, Jim?
I'm trying to see if I comprehend the question.
Okay, go ahead.
If you were to buy the currencies right now, yeah, I think you could get into the game. Supposedly, there are a number of countries that are going to go first because of their dire need. Just like Zimbabwe just recently released their ZIG, their international gold base currency. And there'll be countries like Venezuela who were suppressed, really had a deep state thumb pushed on them. And I think they're being given the first opportunity to rebound in a basket. So if you were to go out and acquire currency right now, I think you have that opportunity. But there's a lot of speculation that if we all, in our respective baskets, went out the door 1-to-1 in relationship to each other, let's say there's the first basket, I've heard like 29 countries in it, and the second basket having some 35 countries in it. I honestly don't know where America sits in that lineup. But there are countries that are in far worse shape, even with the crap that has been pulled on us. And we look at the landscape, there are countries that are in worse shape. And I think they need an honest handout in standing up properly, getting out from underneath that yoke of control. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
You're welcome. J29, unmute yourself.
Hi, thank you. So I just had a question. So when we decide that we want to come home, how long does it take to untangle yourself from the corporation? And also, I see a lot of things that are happening right now where people are going out and they're claiming their credits. Is that something that we still should move forward with, in your opinion?
Okay, first of all, it's a one-page declaration that you're reclaiming your God-given birthright from the state of which you were born on. That document has to be processed either by a notary or a recording secretary. Now, a public notary can process it, but a recording secretary receives it for record. And then you need 2 witness testimonies. And basically what this is 2 people that are willing to step up and say they know you. So those documents are upstream in the thread. So these people are, and then you put 2 passport pictures on these witness testimonies. And these people go to the notary and they're saying, you see this picture? I know this picture. And I know this picture by this name, and I've known them for 7 years. And the notary processes the paperwork. Then you come to a recording secretary on your state. And when you come to them, you need to bring a scanned copy of your birth certificate and the original. The recording secretary will look at the 2 to compare that they are copies of each other. You get the original back. The reason we need the copy is it allows us to make claims against the bankruptcy proceedings on your estate. That opens the door that you're now recognized as a national. So there is a small fee charged for the recording, and there's a small fee for the international posting of the record. Now, once that international posting is made, the entirety of the world can check on you and verify, my God, J29 is an actual declared American. Okay. Well, so the Declaration of Independence isn't dead. And in reality, that is what the contractors attempted to do to us, to make the Declaration of Independence null and void by way of private contract. So if you look upstream on the Constitution channel, there is a document there. Pull it down, and you'll be able to look at, do I have a driver's license? Do I have a birth certificate? Go through the list, and you'll see the elements of contract you have. You have to unwind your contractual obligations and take control of them. Now, as a woman, you have more contractual things around you than the typical man does. So every type of name you've ever utilized in your life, you need to take control of and reclaim them. So if you've been married once, twice, 3 times, you have all of these styles of names to reclaim. If you've been adopted, you have names to reclaim. If you're an artist or are an author under a pen name, you have names to reclaim. And you're going to take them from one jurisdiction to a different jurisdiction and place them in dry dock. And you're going to treat these names just like tennis shoes. So you have tennis shoes by Nike, Reebok, Skechers, and you might even have a pair of Gucci's in the closet, by the way. And no one gets to walk in your shoes without asking your permission and paying you. And yes, we'll teach you how to do that. It's called a deed of reconveyance. And then if you have little ones, you need to do a baby deed on the little ones to reclaim any of the names that were used around them, so that when they become 21, they can assume full control of all that stuff. And if you've been married and have a marriage license, we have a process for walking that back, because that marriage license was issued with non-disclosure and a mutual meeting of the minds. So the nature of the contract is one-sided, where if the people in general were openly given all the details, vast majority of the people would say, oh, hell freaking no. And yes, there's the difference between a legal marriage and a lawful marriage. And yes, I'm someone who can perform a lawful marriage. So there is an old historical instrument called a ketubah. It's out of the original Jewish ancient community. I would highly recommend people go and look it up and study it. It functions by family mutual consent, where the father gives the hand of his daughter to be the bride to a man, with a stipulated understanding. And then that relationship is then recorded in the family Bible. The Geneva Bible is the Bible of the land, versus the King James Bible being the Bible of the sea. And how did it get to be that way? Well, King James wasn't a very nice creature. Our ancestors brought the Geneva Bible into America. And then the King James came in. In the King James Bible, anything that's put in the family genealogy section is recognized as a lawful instrument in court and cannot be overturned. So if you have your family lineage recorded in the book, it stands as law. Now, I'm going to go in antiquity. Someone was given a job by God to go out and name the beasts of the field and to give them names. So when you say, my name is, you're declaring that you're a beast of the field and on what side of the Adamic equation you exist. Hi, I am Bob. You've just invoked your law. I am that I am, says the Creator. Not my name is. The entire system works by admissions and confessions, by the choice of the words you utilize out of your mouth. That which passes across your lips and over your tongue. The tongue is a two-edged sword. It can build up and it can cut down. With the use of I am, you've invoked your law. You're on the Adamic side of the equation. I hope that resonates with people. Next question.
I have a question. I'm one of those people who feels like I'm going to need some assistance. How do I go about getting your assistance with doing my paperwork, like what you were talking about?
Okay, what state of the union are you on?
I live in Minnesota.
Okay. So you would take your one-page declaration and your 2 witness testimonies, put your passport pictures on your witness testimonies, and go to the notary. Get them processed. Then upstream, there is a website for reaching out to the Federation of States. It's a contact page, and when you open it up, you're going to see an American map with the 50 states on it. You will touch your state, and then a page will open up. You will fill out your information, and your state assembly will respond in kind and contact you. Some states have a fair number of recording secretaries, and some states not so much. Be patient. Okay? I just recently reposted on a platform that the states need better responses to inquiries. But you will get with a recording secretary, or you'll get an invitation to the state meeting where a recording secretary will be present to process your paperwork. Go upstream and pull that document so that you can see the various contracts that you have in your life. You'll be able to use that document as a working instrument to go backward through your life. So you were trafficked into the ocean, and you have to swim back to shore, come out of the ocean, and walk backward into your state. And when you do this process, you'll walk backward into your county jurisdiction. And that's just automatic to be able to repopulate your State of the Union. I hope that satisfies your question.
Yeah, that satisfies one of my questions. Because my next one is, how would I go about doing New York City?
Say that again, going about what?
New York City.
Well, if you're on Minnesota, what does...
I have one family member that's Minnesota. My
Okay.
original one is New York City.
Okay. So if you were born on New York, you're reclaiming your New Yorker status. Even though you live, let's say, in Minnesota or Florida. I am a Californian. I reclaimed my Californian birthright, even though I have lived on Washington since I have been 6 years old. So you will go through a similar process. Now, your family members, wherever they're at, are open to this very same process. You would share those documents, have them go to a notary in New York. The notary would sign stuff. And then you would reach out to the New York Assembly and go meet them.
Okay. Are any of these documents in the room?
Pardon? Are any of them what?
Are any of the documents you're speaking about in the room in files at all?
Yes. So let me go upstream in the room. Okay. September 28th. The 1779 one-pager for America. And then right underneath it is the witness affirmation form for the notary. The Secretary of State regular notary. So I hope that helps you. Any other questions from anybody? Well, keep a stiff upper lip, smile a lot, keep everyone guessing what you're up to. Because since the announcement that the U.S. Incorporated no longer exists and American land law is back in session, you're going to see a lot of institutional enterprises called government adjust their behavior. Many of the three-letter agencies are suddenly going to correct their behaviors, and a whole bunch of them are going to cease to exist. During FDR's time, they created 350 plus of these agencies, and many of them are hired help of the hired help. And all of that miscellaneous taxation is going to go bye-bye. Okay, now RJ just posted a link in the Constitution Room to the Geneva Bible of 1569. I do believe that was the last issued Geneva Bible. There's 1560 and 1569 versions of it. And if you were to sit down and compare them side by side with blacks, you will see many interpretation changes. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
Well, you're more than welcome. So does anybody else have anything they want to banter about?
I will say that this call has been recorded. If anyone missed all of the call and you want to hear it all, it will be on the Seeds of Wisdom team YouTube channel. That's where Salty will be posting it.
Okay.
And I will give you a link to that. I'll put a link to that down here.
Well, thank you very much. Now, back in September 28th, there is a connection page to the AmericanStateNational.org. This will bring up that map for contacting your state assembly. It's right below the Seeds of Wisdom posting for the recording. So I thank you all for turning out. I was only expecting maybe 15 to 20 minutes of call tonight. I do hope I have helped you in your journey. The next few weeks is going to be very interesting. I hope you do go out and stock up a little bit because we're supposed to have an event. Think of going on a 10-day vacation in your living room. Do you have the supplies on hand to do a 10-day staycation in your house? So with that, I'm going to wrap my presence tonight up. Thank you, RJ.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much. We appreciate everything that you are sharing with us and teaching us. It's fascinating, and it's sad that we had to go through all of this, but we appreciate the fact that you are bringing all of this to light for all of us. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Well, as you master a subject, please share it, because more and more people are waking up that something is not quite right. And as you master a subject and you share it, you help light up the world. Go forth and be that light. Be the salt of the earth and be the bringer of change that you want to see in the world. And do it with a smile. Thank you all. And good